What if every torn-edge photo in this book is a jigsaw piece? What if the name Charles, repeated 22 times, spells out the frame? And what if the Hopi calendar on page 85 isn't decoration at all, but the clock counting down to the lion's share itself? Welcome to Chapter 8. Let's tug on our unbreakable thread and see what unravels or what finally ties together. Collins opens with Orison Swett Marden. Our thoughts and imagination are the only real limits to our possibilities. Translation? This chapter is a sandbox. Torn photographs, Hopi prophecy, all fair game if your imaginations are switched on. Marden founded that magazine in 1897, preaching New Thought optimism. Collins is telling us straight up, think bigger or you'll miss the path. We begin Chapter 8 on page 77. And Collins doesn't ease us in. He opens with a deeply personal reflection, tying this chapter directly to one of his own children's books, Our Unbreakable Thread. Now, if you haven't read that book yet, you may want to. Collins has explicitly said he placed clues in it tied to the lion's share. And Chapter 8 is the bridge. The title itself, Unbreakable Thread, is a metaphor he takes seriously. On page 77, he writes about the value of traditions, family history, and the ties that bind us together. This chapter radiates with that sense of connectedness, from family lineage to cultural memory. It's personal, grounded. But if you've read Collins before, you know when he gets personal, the clues are closer than ever. Now here's what stood out to me, the teddy bear. In Our Unbreakable Thread, the bear appears on several pages, almost quietly. You might brush it off as background art, a comfort item for a child. But in Chapter 8, we're being nudged to look again. Think symbolically. A bear isn't just a stuffed animal. It's a guardian, a wilderness guide, a creature tied to strength, hibernation, and the stars. Take a look at this. Ursa Major, the Great Bear, contains the Big Dipper, a navigational anchor used for centuries. Ursa Minor contains Polaris, the North Star, the one fixed point in the sky, constant, guiding. So now we ask, could this recurring teddy bear in Unbreakable Thread be more than sentimental? Could it be a constellation key? Or maybe even a marker to help align clues in the night sky? Collins writes about the value of remembering where you came from, the importance of carrying those you love with you as you move forward. And right there, embedded in the nostalgia, he starts to plant the treasure logic. Because treasure in Collins' world isn't just gold or jewelry. It's legacy, it's connection, and maybe it's also a cipher made of threads, starry, cultural, symbolic, that bind the puzzle together. Page 77 is deceptively quiet, but the louder chapters aren't always the most revealing. This one whispers. It says, go back to the stories, reread the picture books, print out the patterns, follow the bear. You'll find that the unbreakable thread, it's not just about tradition, it may be the line that leads you straight to the lion's share. So whether it's the teddy bear, the constellation trail, or the tone of familial reverence, don't skip this page. Don't overlook the simple stuff. Sometimes the strongest threads are invisible until you start pulling. All right, let's talk about page 79, and one name. Charles' overlay highlights every Charles on screen, one by one, with a subtle chime sound. Now, if you're skimming casually, you might miss it, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The name Charles appears 22 times on this single page. Yes, 22. I counted, twice. It's not just that the name is repeated, it's how it's repeated. The placement, the rhythm. Some lines start with it, some end with it. In a few spots, it shows up almost in every line of the paragraph. So what's going on here? Is it lazy editing? Or is Collins trying to hammer in something we're not supposed to ignore? Let's talk possibilities. In numerology, the number 22 is known as a master builder. It's associated with vision, precision, and structure. And if you think about Charles Laloma, the Hopi jeweler this chapter focuses on, it fits. He literally built masterpieces with stone, metal, and vision. 22 may not just be a count. It may be a message. We're building something here. Something structured, intentional, like a puzzle. Start looking at where each Charles appears, line by line. Do they form a shape, a rhythm? Are we supposed to extract every other one, or count syllables, or index letters from the following words? Charles Laloma was a revolutionary Hopi artist, known for mixing traditional native motifs with futuristic, modern forms. Turquoise, lapis, coral, ironwood. His jewelry was spiritual, architectural, and coated with meaning. This entire chapter seems like a love letter to Laloma's vision. And maybe, just maybe, the page itself mirrors his design. Layered, patterned, precise. So here's the question. Is the Charles Barrage a real breadcrumb? Or is Collins just flooding the page to overwhelm us? We've seen him do this before, in Chapter 7 with Amelia, mentioned 16 times on one page. These name bomb pages might be signal flares. Something underneath them, or behind them, might matter more than the text. For example, in the last chapter 7, Amelia's name is mentioned 16 times on page 72. Sometimes the name is repeated in a certain pattern or on almost every line of sentence text. This really stood out to me as I went through the chapters circling the repeating names. Here's your challenge this week. Circle every repeating name, map their placement. Start looking for hidden patterns, spacing, initials, coded sequences. Charles may be just a name, or he might be the key that unlocks everything else this chapter is building toward. So keep your pencil sharp, your eyes open, and your mind on the pattern. Because when Collins repeats himself, he's rarely wasting ink. Chapter 8 takes a sharp turn from the chaotic mosaic of previous chapters. Here, John Collins isn't jumping from topic to topic or blending 5 different voices. He's focused, intentional, centered. And what he's centered on is the world of the Hopi people, their mythology, their color language, and the powerful work of one man, Charles Laloma. If earlier chapters felt like city streets, loud, tangled, fast, this one feels like a desert trail at sunrise. It breathes, it listens, it reflects. The Hopi aren't just referenced. Their worldview structures this chapter. From the bean dance ceremony to the sacred geometry of jewelry, Collins brings us face to face with something ancient and resonant. The Hopi see the world as a woven tapestry of stories. Their ceremonies, like the bean dance, are not performance, but prophecy, reenactments of cosmic order, echoes of past worlds, and maybe blueprints for navigating the present. In Hopi tradition, everything is symbolic. Animals, directions, colors, seasons, even silence. And that's where Charles Laloma comes in. Laloma wasn't just making jewelry, he was mapping a cosmic code in stone and silver. Inlay by inlay, his pieces reflect sacred balance. Turquoise for sky and water, coral for life and blood, jet or obsidian for death and protection, shells and silver for purity and reflection. These aren't random choices, this is directional color theory. North, south, east, west. And Collins knows we're supposed to recognize it. This chapter continues a pattern we've seen since chapter 6. Colors aren't decoration, they're data. Think of it like this. Rubik's Cube equals colors in motion, Hopi jewelry equals colors in position. Together, they might form a grid or sequence. So when you're flipping through this chapter, start noting. Which pieces show up multiple times? Are specific stones clustered on one page? Is the order of colors repeated, like a chant or prayer? Collins isn't just admiring from afar, he's connecting. He ties these themes to his own life. Childhood posters, family traditions, heirlooms passed down like stories. He's inviting us not just to decode a puzzle, but to ask, what do you inherit? What do you carry? What do you bury? And what do you preserve? There's something special about how tight this chapter is. We're not bouncing between Amelia Earhart, Borman, Gandhi, elephants, and NASA. This is laser-focused, one culture, one artist, one rhythm. And when a writer like Collins slows down, it's usually because the clue is no longer scattered. It's right in front of you. Where is the Hopi Reservation? The Hopi Reservation is located in northeastern Arizona, within the larger Navajo Nation, but it is a sovereign tribal territory of the Hopi people. The reservation spans more than 1.5 million acres and is situated atop three mesas: First Mesa, Second Mesa, and Third Mesa, each home to centuries-old Hopi villages. In the context of There's Treasure Inside, the mention of Hopi mythology, the bean dance ceremony, and Charles Loloma, who was born and worked near Hoda Villa on Third Mesa, grounds Chapter 8 in a very specific and symbolic landscape. If Collins is pointing us towards something with meaning and stillness, the Hopi Mesas are exactly that kind of place. Mythology, color, ceremony, precision. The Hopi say we live in the fourth world, with one more world still to come. Could it be that this treasure hunt is asking us to make that leap? To see with ancient eyes, to build like a master craftsman, and to remember that beauty, when it's bespoken, is always carrying a secret underneath. Okay, we need to talk about the photographs in this chapter, specifically the ones with torn edges. Take a closer look at the photos on pages 77 through 81. Some are full bleed, some are cropped tightly, but others have this ripped, weathered border as if they were pulled from a scrapbook or a memory. And right here, in the top left of this image, there's something strange, not immediately obvious, but once you see it, it looks like a child's profile, specifically one of those old-school cameo silhouettes like you'd get at Disneyland or a county fair. A rounded forehead, a nose, maybe even the curve of a chin. It's subtle, and it blends with the background, but Collins has mentioned hanging posters on his wall as a kid, just like this. So here's what I did. I went through the book, and I scanned every photo with torn edges. I printed them all out, just like posters, and I started arranging them, not by page number, but by visual connection. Lines begin to line up, colors echo, backgrounds match. These aren't just decorative images. They may be puzzle pieces. Literally. Think like a forger, a collage artist, or a kid taping things to the wall to make meaning out of memories. And just when I thought I was finished digging, I came across this. At first glance, it looks like something from a science fiction movie, but the photo is real. That's Joe O'Connor in an early prototype of an Apollo spacesuit, standing in the Hopi Buttes volcanic field, part of what's now the Navajo Nation in Arizona. The photo was taken in 1965 as NASA scientists tested gear and trained astronauts in terrain that resembled the moon. Now think about that for a second. A man in a spacesuit standing on sacred ancient volcanic land once walked by indigenous peoples for millennia, beneath skies mapped by both NASA engineers and Hopi stargazers. You couldn't ask for a more literal symbol of know the past, see the future. It's not Hopi land. It's Navajo. But the proximity, the landscape, the moment, it says everything this chapter is whispering. Past and future meet in one photo. Earth and space, ceremony and science, all layered into one frame. Sometimes the most powerful clues don't come from a page. Sometimes they're waiting in the background of a stock photo or a forgotten government archive. But when you find them, they echo like prophecy. The thread continues, from a bear in the sky to a man on the moon. As Chapter 8 builds toward its climax, we're handed a slow but steady stack of terms that start repeating: stone in the hole, tightly clustered, illumination, bridges, unbreakable thread. These aren't just poetic flourishes. They're part of the vocabulary Collins keeps weaving. And when the same terms show up over multiple chapters, they aren't casual anymore. They're directional. This one hits hard. Stone in the hole. It could be symbolic, a precious memory buried deep. But more likely, it's literal. A reference to a landmark, a hiding spot, a puzzle element, something inside rock or beneath it. We're looking for a rock formation. That much is clear. And just like with Amelia in Chapter 7, we're once again taken into the air. Charles and Sanwai flew. They looked down on the world, from above, specifically over places like Canyon de Chelly, known for its sacred geometry, formations, and cliffside markers. A bird's eye view means things only make sense from elevation. Patterns aren't visible on the ground, and landmarks may resemble symbols only when seen from above. Collins gives us three words on page 84, almost in passing, but they feel anything but casual. Bridges, threads, illumination. On their own, each of these words carries symbolic weight, but together, they form the architecture of this entire hunt. They're not just words, they're movements, they're maps. They might even be the mechanism by which we reach the treasure. Let's start with the bridge. In literature and folklore, bridges have always symbolized transition, crossing from one state to another. In Celtic myth, crossing a bridge might mean entering the world of the dead. In fairy tales, it's where you meet the troll, the test of your worth. But in Colin's world, a bridge might be more spiritual than physical, a bridge between past and future, as this chapter's title reminds us, or maybe between tradition and discovery. We're not just crossing a river, we're crossing into clarity. An illuminated bridge, literal or figurative? Could it be a real-world location? A stone bridge where light hits it a certain way? But what if Collins means it literally? What if light, the angle of it, the time of day, the shadows, then plays a part in how the clues appear? In another treasure hunt, The Secret, light and shadows actually helped reveal the burial spot in one solve. Could There's Treasure Inside include a similar mechanism? A specific place, a bridge, or formation, only visible or meaningful when illuminated at a certain angle or at a certain time of year. Now we turn to page 85, where the Hopi calendar sits front and center. And like the smaller box coins, there's an angled line through the center, measured out at 151 degrees. Another matching design element, another symbol worth mirroring. At the top, the Katsina season, ceremonial, sacred, aligned with planting and dancing. Below, the non-Katsina season, the other half of the cycle. This calendar isn't just telling time, it's setting the stage for something hidden in pattern and balance. Now let's talk about one of the most exciting finds in this chapter. And it comes from community work on Discord. Several months are marked with a single letter that's either overlined or underlined. January, N overlined. February, E underlined. April, R and L underlined. May, A overlined. August, T underlined. And yes, if you collect just the letters, you get ANTLER. A six-letter word that feels intentional, especially since antlers appear as ceremonial symbols in Hopi dances, hunter mythology, and even in the geometry of branching rock formations. One viewer on Discord raised a great point. Why do we treat the overlined and underlined letters as equal when they're clearly marked differently? Maybe they're two separate messages. Maybe they form an acrostic. Maybe one is the key to unlocking the other. After all, Collins never includes visual details casually. And then we return to dancing. Again, dancers are on the land. That phrase has haunted this hunt since early chapters. And in the context of the Hopi calendar, it may finally make sense. Each seasonal marker represents a ceremony, a Katsina spirit, or a dance held at a certain time of year, all tied to the land itself. The dancers aren't just on the land. They're activating it. They're telling time with their feet. Antler, 151 degrees, bridges, threads, a stone in a hole. Chapter 8 doesn't hide its symbols. It clusters them. Tightly, like Collins said. You just have to stand back far enough to see the shape they make. Here's a word that keeps surfacing like a quiet drumbeat in the background of this book. Divide. A Discord user pulled out a string of quotes, and when you line them up, the repetition becomes impossible to ignore. Page 32. Brahma then divided this lotus into the heavens. Page 78. The Hopi are divided into clans. Page 148. Their national team had felt divided. Page 155. Washington decided he would divide his troops. Page 167. By finding new things, crossing new divides we discover. Page 197. Wealth and status were not divided equally. Now that word, divide, can mean a lot of things. It can be spiritual. It can be social. It can be strategic, like Washington on page 155, but it can also be geographic. And when a treasure hunt book keeps repeating that term across nearly 200 pages, you have to ask yourself, are we supposed to go find the Continental Divide? The Continental Divide of the Americas is a massive, mountainous seam that stretches across the entire western half of the U.S. It runs from the Beartooth Mountains in Montana through Wyoming, past Colorado, and deep into New Mexico. It marks the literal dividing line where water either flows toward the Pacific Ocean or toward the Atlantic. But it's more than geology, it's symbolic. It's the moment of decision, the choice of direction, the place you cross from one idea, one worldview, one realm, into another. By finding new things, crossing new divides, we discover that doesn't sound like a metaphor anymore. That sounds like instructions. Let's overlay what we know. Chapter 7 gave us Amelia Earhart in Kerwin, Wyoming. Very close to the divide, Chapter 8 centers around the Hopi, located near the Four Corners. With Hopis and Navajo lands close to the divide's southern section, Collins mentions elevation, airplanes, rock formations, and bird's-eye views. You don't get those unless you're walking a ridge or flying over a spine. So here's the new angle for our community. Map the phrase divide throughout the book. Connect those moments. Then overlay your map onto the continental divide itself. Does a pattern emerge? Do the mentions fall near physical waypoints? Or are they drawing a symbolic line we're meant to walk? The Hopi were divided into clans. Brahma divided the heavens. Washington divided his troops. And now, maybe it's our turn to divide illusion from meaning and to cross the place where one world ends and the real treasure begins.